episode of Geek Nation. I'm Gabriela Garcia.
And I'm Michael Allen.
We have a great episode. We have a brand new Twitter poll question for you guys to vote on.
And we're going to start this episode with the MLB stat of the week.
Friday was the fifth day this season where 50 or more home runs were hit in the collective games played in MLB that day. 5 games in a season now sets the record for most in any season with several more days to play.
Premier League soccer is back. CleatGeeks.com is once again excited to cover 3 different teams every week: Manchester United, Arsenal, and Chelsea. If you are a big soccer fan and would like to score a goal every week for us, then go to the Do You Have What It Takes to Be One of Our Geeks link at the bottom of our homepage and follow the instructions.
For this week's Think Tank trivia question, take a look at this picture. This past Saturday, Clayton Kershaw fell underneath the minimum innings pitched mark to hold first place when it comes to the lowest ERA in MLB. The question is, what starting pitcher now holds that coveted #1 spot?
Are you a big NBA fan and can't wait for the regular season to start? Well, this week, CleatGeeks.com was thinking of you when the article titled NBA Scheduling Look Opening Night, where one of our talented NBA writers, Matthew, looks at 3 different big-time matchups that will take place on opening night in the NBA. Did your favorite team get highlighted in one of the matchups to watch? Go to our website and simply go to the search tab in the upper right-hand corner and type in NBA for this and other great stories on the NBA offseason.
Now it's time for Attaboy.
Oh boy.
Our Attaboy goes to Cleveland outfielder Tyler Naquin. He did something that has not been done for the Cleveland franchise since 1916. That was hit a walk-off inside the park home run.
And our oh boy is more ironic this week than terrible. Earlier in the week, the Milwaukee Brewers started left-handed pitcher Brent Suter that snapped a streak of 474 games the Brewers had gone without having a left-hander starter. That is the second longest streak in baseball history. The record is 681, held by the Dodgers from 1992 to 97.
This week we would like to give our Cleats Up Award to Olympic athlete Allison Felix for being the first woman in history to win 5 Olympic gold medals in track and field.
And now we're going to go back to our Think Tank trivia question. I'm going to give you another hint. This pitcher was one of the Ivy League school pitchers.
The wrestling world was shocked this week when not 1, not 2, but 3 different WWE superstars were given 30-day suspensions for violating the WWE's wellness policy this week. We have you covered on all of the suspensions, reviews of all the shows, and you can learn our predictions for both pay-per-views this past weekend. So if one of your sports loves includes wrestling, then we have you covered with 10 different wrestling stories in the past week from our incredible writing staff.
The man with the lowest ERA in major leagues as of today, Saturday, is Kyle Hendricks of the Chicago Cubs with 2.16.
And now we're going into our Twitter poll question. Last week the question was, I'm going to watch more of which of these sports this upcoming week? 58% said regular season baseball, 16% said preseason football, and 26% said Olympic events. Now for this week's Twitter poll question, we're playing off of our Think Tank trivia question. Does Kyle Hendricks have a legitimate chance to win the Cy Young?
Yes.
Well, you have to go vote on our Twitter poll for that. So make sure you go to our Twitter @_GeekNation_ and vote on the poll. To end the episode this week, we're going to do a Geek Nation conversation. This subject is going to upset some people, but as the records keep being broken, we are almost forced to talk about it. Remember, we do not write the scripts for the show. Numbers don't lie, so let's take a number and use it as our starting point to jumpstart this Geek Nation conversation. In final seasons of players 40 and over, here are the top 3 people with the most home runs. Ted Williams with 29, and then tied for the second spot is current player David Ortiz and Barry Bonds, both with 28. First, let's take a moment and talk about the greatness that is Ted Williams.
Ted Williams is a great baseball player, was a great baseball player, excuse me. You know, he cared about his teammates, he cared about everything. But I have a fun story that my grandpa, who was one summer just graduated college. He was down in Florida working on a fishing boat. And Mr. Ted Williams comes up, and as my grandpa tells the story, Ted tells my grandpa, son, I need you to stop what you are doing, and I need you to go fight this war. So next thing my grandpa knows is he's getting registered to go fight in the war, all because of Ted Williams. And therefore, my grandpa just grew to love Ted Williams and everything that he stands for. So I mean, Ted Williams is hands down one of the best baseball players to ever grace us with this sport.
Wow, I love that story. That's pretty cool. Now let's go the opposite way and ask this question. With Barry Bonds holding some of the same baseball records with his obvious yet never proven PED use, is he ruining the history of baseball?
And I think he kind of wrote some of the history of baseball. If you put all these guys who used PEDs into their own category and what all they did with hitting the home runs and how much power they had and how big they were, and if you look at Barry Bonds from his rookie year to his last year, you can totally see the huge difference, physical difference in who he was. I mean, baseball is baseball. It's America's pastime. And with PEDs, I think it's totally bad for the game, but what Barry Bonds and that group of people did kind of wrote a different path of history for the game, and kids now, younger generation, are going to learn, hey, you can't do what Barry Bonds did. So in a sense, you kind of have to maybe thank Barry Bonds so that these younger kids coming into the game don't do what he and others did.
Now David Ortiz is having a great final season, but as he continues to put up records and not break down, are we to wonder about his own possible PED use?
I think David Ortiz is one of the best players in the game right now. I looked up to him when I was a little leaguer. I look up to him as an aspiring broadcaster. He's just someone who is well-rounded, who cares about the game, who loves the game, and loves everyone who's involved with the game. And to put him in the PED use category, I take offense to it. I really do. You can't say that all big power hitters, big DHs use PEDs. There are clean ones out there, and I do think, and I hope it's true, David Ortiz is one of those guys.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. He is amazing, and I don't want to put him in that category because, you know, some guys are just really good at what they do. They don't need the PEDs, so we shouldn't put them all in that category. He was released by the Minnesota Twins early in his career, almost left for dead, then revitalized his career in Boston. Is that just a coincidence? Possibly more important, do we have to have a reason for a star player to have a successful long playing career after stumbling with the cloud of PEDs hanging over the sport?
Okay, to answer your first question, I think David Ortiz realized that what he wanted to do when he was with Minnesota didn't want that. So going to Boston, he kind of had to fight for his job and, in a sense, fight for his life. And that's made him who he is today. Loving husband, loving father. And he's just proven himself to so many people, so many doubters. And, you know, he's just that good. And then to answer your question about PEDs hanging over the sport, again, what I just said, you can't put David Ortiz and other star players who've had much success like David Ortiz, who have so much love for the game and who just care about everyone involved, from the umpires to the fans to the bat and ball girls, boys, whatever, and then charities and starting their own charities, things like that. You just can't put them in their own category because of what others have done.
Do you suspect that Barry Bonds was using some sort of PEDs during his baseball career?
Who wasn't at that time? There's a list that goes on and on of guys. Roger Clemens, Sammy Sosa, Mark McGwire, yeah. All these guys were doing it. And at the time, baseball really didn't have a set, strict policy as they do now. And, I mean, you just look at the physical differences, as I mentioned it. From his rookie year to his last game, look at how big the dude got. He's huge. And people are going to say, oh, Frank Thomas. He's a Hall of Famer, but he was in that era. No, Frank Thomas is one of the cleanest guys. And he has so much love and respect for the game, as much as David Ortiz. And you can't just put guys who are power hitters and all of that because of what Bonds and Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa all did to, improve their stats.
Now, do you think a lot of guys from that era were pressured into using them because a lot of their co-workers were using them too during that time?
Probably, and I think everyone, if you look at Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire, that one season that they were the home run kings going back and forth with each other. But then other guys are like, hey, I want to do that. What do you guys use it? Well, Sammy used a cork bat, and so we know how that went, but nothing's really come out saying that Sammy used PEDs, whatever, but you can just tell. No guy's going to hit that many home runs without some sort of extra boost to give him. People are going to say the same thing about David Ortiz, but I just have a strong gut feeling David Ortiz is clean.
Now, I have to bring this up. We saw what Chris Bryant did the other day, going 5 for 5 with 2 home runs, and now he's being put in the Cubs record books. Ernie Banks and Sammy Sosa. Does it make you angry that he's being put in there with a guy like Sammy Sosa?
Not at all. I think that just gives him and that team so much more energy and heart to go break that record, make them be at the top. And especially with this new wave of kids, Addison Russell, Trevor Story, Chris Bryant, all of these young kids, they know that, hey, back in the early 2000s, with all these guys doing what they did, I can't afford that. I got endorsements, I have this, and this. I have a family, I have kids. I need to really think about what I'm doing, and I need to stay clean. So if that means being in the batting cages for 7 hours on your off days, or going to the weight room, putting on extra weight to gain muscle, to give you more power, you just can't do that nowadays, and especially with the strict rules. So to really answer your question, I'm not mad, and I think all these players, even on any other teams other than the Cubs, are hungry to go break records.
Make sure you go to our Twitter @_Geek Nation_ and let us know what you think on this controversial topic. But that's going to do it for us on this episode of Geek Nation. Make sure you go to ClickGeeks.com to read all the latest articles.
I'm Michael.
And I'm Gabriella.
And we'll see you next weekend.